Hello everyone, this is Kranth and I'll be teaching you today about communications and its importances. And of course, when I speak about the importance of communication, I also want to tell you guys what are the easy steps of communications and why is communication so important for you and what will communication make you. That is what I'm going to say you today. So when I speak about the 7 steps or the easy steps of communication, I just want you to remember these steps because anywhere you go, this communication will make you a better person and will take you to the next level of the decency. So when I speak about all these steps of communication, I just want you to remember that the communication and the importance of it will help you in any stage of your life. That means it's not only about interview, it can be related to your marriage bureau, it can be related to anything. For example, you have gone for a business meeting and to make the business deal, of course, the communication is required. When you go for an interview, yes, communication is required. When you go for a marriage bureau, yes, communication is required. When you go for a party or something, yes, communication is required. So anywhere you go, the most important thing that you should remember is how to communicate, because I was taking classes for you on communications, but how to communicate is something which I haven't said you yet. So today I'll be telling you guys about how to communicate and what actually will make you a proper communicator. So these are the most important things that I'll be sharing you today. Alright, so now let us speak about what makes your communication more better and how many steps are there to make the communication better. So before I go ahead, a very good morning to everybody, and I am Kranth and I'll be taking you the communication classes for you. Alright, so now let me show you a slide where we have the 7 tips to good body language. Yes, of course. Guys, remember, this is not a class of detailed body language, but yes, this body language is required for you when you have communication. Because before I go ahead with the communication, when your body language is not good or when you are really not having a proper attire, the problem with and will be no proper communication, because the communication will be into the next level, or the communications can happen more better if your attire and body language is really good. So always remember, body language is not about the entire detailed structure of your body or something. It is just about what are the steps that you have to follow when I'm saying about the rules in communication. Alright, so now let us see the slide here. We have the first one, and that is, yes, the handshake. When I say number 1, the first thing that I want to say here is the moment you walk into the office or when you walk into any place, you are immediately being judged. Make sure that you walk in with confidence, keep your posture in check, and be ready to give a good, strong handshake to anyone you meet. What does this mean? When I say this, I want you to remember that whenever you are entering into the room, for example, obviously you will not be there already when the party is begin, or when you are already into an interview hall, or when you are, obviously you won't be there, isn't it? So you will be entering into a particular place. When you are entering into the particular place, the people who are already inside will have the time to judge you when you are entering into the place. So the first thing that you have to remember is the right moment you are into the place, the people will judge you. So when they are judging you, always keep a mark on your posture. Make yourself stiff and straight. And when you are straight and stiff, obviously a handshake will make your conversation an amazing thing. Because when you give a handshake, obviously people would love your way of communication or the start of your communication, because usually men should have a firm handshake, because with a firm handshake anything and everything will set right. Alright, so always remember that the first thing that you have to remember whenever you are going anywhere, to have a first straightforward awesome mark, if you want that, then the first thing that you have to remember is a firm handshake. That's what I have mentioned here. Keep your posture in check and be ready to give a good, strong handshake to anyone you meet. For example, when you have entered into a room and you have 3 interviewers in the room, what shall you do? Yes, you have to give a firm handshake to all the 3 of the people, so that all the 3 will make sure that your confidence levels are high, and they'll have the time to check your confidence and the posture level, which signifies your confidence again. So this is the first step for you to remember about the communication and the body language. So body language is the first step to improve your communication. So in the body language, the first thing that you have to remember is a firm handshake, which makes the start of the communication superb. Alright, so now let me take you with the second slide. Number 2. When I speak about number 2, what is that? You can see here and the image, you can see eye contact. And what is this? Yes, eye contact is key. Make sure to keep eye contact with the person interviewing you. If multiple people are in the room, look around the room at the other people and then direct your attention back at the person that asked the question. Eye contact shows that you are confident and prepared. What does this mean? So, when I am talking about the 7 steps of communication or the 7 important body language tips, the first one is a handshake, which starts a conversation, and the second one is the eye contact, which makes the listener or which makes the other person feels that you are confident enough and you are well prepared about this particular situation. When I say that, I always want you to remember that eye contact will make you or will make others, whoever is listening to you, be very patient and be very particular in listening to you, because sometimes when you are talking to the people won't listen to you because lack of your eye contact. So remember guys, when you have a proper eye contact with the person you are talking with, the person who is listening to you will make sure that he is noted. That is what is an eye contact. And there will be few doubts for you. Sir, what if there are 5 people in the room and you have to communicate with everybody, but there is only one person is asking questions? If there is only one person who is asking questions, what you should do, right after the person asks the question, you should be able to answer to him and as well as to all of them by looking into their eyes. For example, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, like let us imagine there is a person here, there is a person here, there is a person here. So what I do is, the first thing that I will be doing is, I will be trying to communicate with all of the 3 people, that is by looking at their eyes. For example, if number 1 is asking me the question, I listen to the person and then I will be looking at the eyes of all of the people, which makes that I am giving attention to every interviewer who is interviewing me, and as well as I am proving my confidence to all of them. So this eye contact will obviously make person feel that you are really good in the confidence, and it makes you prepared for the situation. So always remember, eye contact is number 2, which is a very important thing that you have to follow when you are in the interview room or when you are at any conversation point. So this is the most important thing that you have to remember in the body language. So now let me take you with the third PPT. And what is that? When I say number 3, the most important thing in number 3 is yes. And what is that? You can see in the image. Apart from the handshake and the smile, apart from the handshake and the eye contact, number 3 is the baby smile. Yes, I was talking about flood smile. Don't flash an immediate smile when you greet someone, says Lannis. If you do, it appears as if anyone in your line of sight would receive the same smile. Instead, pause and look at the other person's face for a second, and then let a big, warm, responsive smile flood over your face and overflow into your eyes. Even though the delay is less than a second, it will convince people your smile is personalized for them. What does this mean? When I say about the body language, the first thing I was telling you is, first, I was talking about a firm handshake. The second, I was talking about the eye contact. The third one I was talking about is, yes, a smile. A flood smile means nothing but when you're talking to somebody, don't just give a smile all the time, because the people won't feel that the smile is for them. Yes, you just have to wait for a second, pause your conversation, look into the person, smile, and let the smile come into your eyes, and then dedicate the smile to that person, so that the person will feel pleasant and he will or she will be happy that the smile of yours is dedicated for them. So giving a smile, a big warm smile, will make the conversation more positive and expand. So this will make your conversation go deep and will have a positive vibe when you are having a conversation, because you have started with a very good vibe. That is a firm handshake, you are maintaining an eye contact, and of course you are giving a big smile. That is what I can show you in the slide. For example, if you have seen the slide here, in the slide you have a person giving a handshake, looking into the other person's eyes straight away, and then there is a smile where I can say this makes the conversation have a positive vibe. So if these three are the most important things that I have to say, we have another set of important topics to talk about after this point, and when I speak about that, I just want you to remember after this third point, because all that are helpful for you to have a good conversation is body language. All right. So now let us see the next slide here. Yes. And what does this signal mean? Here in the diagram, the only thing that you can see is, yes, the pitching of the sound, that is voice. When I speak about voice, often the tone of voice says more than your words do. You can say that you know how to perform the job duties, but if it doesn't sound like you do, you won't inspire much confidence in the hiring manager. For example, You're talking to somebody, and when you're talking, if you really don't mention, if you really don't maintain your voice, that means when you are really not appropriate to your body, obviously, for example, that is what I have mentioned here. You have gone for an interview and the interviewer have asked you, will you be able to perform the job duties? If you say yes, that doesn't seem like you do, isn't it? So you always have to maintain your body posture and say, yes, I do. So yes, I do will make sure you improve the confidence, and your confidence level will be high when you maintain your voice in proper thing. So I wanted to say you that your voice matters a lot when you're talking also, because when you have a very low voice, the people who are listening to you will not be able to judge you or will not be able to understand what you're talking. So always remember, your voice have to be fluctuating, and when you talk, obviously your voice have to play the important role. When I say your voice have to play an important role, I do literally mean that your voice should talk or should make others listen to you without making any noise. So that is what your voice have to be capable enough of, right? So when you are talking to somebody, always make sure you are maintaining your voice with a proper punch in your voice, right? So this is the fourth important thing that you have to remember, especially when you are having a conversation. Before, the 3 steps is to start the conversation, and from the 4th point, remember, it is happening. When the conversation is happening, you have to remember these. That is, the first one is voice. When you're talking with a good voice, obviously people would love to listen to you because you have the punch in your voice, right? So now let me show you the next PPT. Yes. What is this? This is fidget. Don't fidget. Whatever you do, don't play with your hair, click a pen, or wiggle your hands and feet during an interview. Fidgeting tells the interviewer that you are uncomfortable and not confident. What is this? When I say don't fidget, I want you to remember that when you do, especially girls have a habit of twirling their hair and putting the hands on their hair and disturbing their hair when they are talking to somebody. So always remember, you should never do that. Tie your hair properly whenever you're going for a party, or whenever you're going for an interview, or whenever you're going for a place where the conversation happens. So when you do a lot of fidgets when you're having the conversation, the concentration of the person who is looking at you will obviously have the concentration on the fidgeting. For example, when you are just wiggling your hands, or when you're just breaking your fingers, the first thing, the problem is because of the sounds or because of the gestures of your fingers, people would obviously have their concentration on your fidgets, which makes the conversation disturbed. So always remember that the best conversation can only happen when you are concentrating more on no fidgeting. That means sit straight and only make sure your gestures you have in the conversation. Don't try to put some fidget things, or don't try to rotate your phone. Some people have clicking the pen, some people click the pen many times. Don't do it. And at the same time, yes, boys have a habit of shaking their legs a lot of time. Even I had that habit. Even I have the habit. but I just have to control it to make the conversation more better, isn't it? That is what I just want you to remember as a fifth point. And fourth and fifth points are when the conversation is happening. Always remember, when the conversation is happening, remember the first thing is make your voice louder and good sufficient. And the fifth point is, as I have said you right now, don't fidget, because as much as you fidget, the concentration of the listener or the viewer will obviously get disturbed because of your fidgeting, right? So let us see the slide once again. If you can see here, obviously fidgeting will make your confident levels down and will also make sure the interviewer is really not comfortable because of your fidgeting. So before we go ahead with the sixth point, let me say, what are we learning today? Yes, we were learning how to make a better conversation. So when I say how to make a better conversation, before starting the conversation, we have 3 points to remember. What is that? The first one is a firm handshake. The second one is maintaining a proper eye contact with the person you are starting the conversation with. And the third is a floody smile, because this floody smile will make sure that the conversation is in a positive vibe. And when the conversation is happening, what are the two things that you have to remember? The first one is voice. When I say voice, your voice have to be fluctuated and make sure that your voice is in a proper way and it is not disturbing the others. It should be in a way that the other person feels pleasant and love your voice. And now the fifth one that I am talking when the conversation is happening is don't fidget, because when you fidget, obviously the concentration of the person will not be there on your conversation. So this is what you just have to remember when the conversation is happening. All right. Now let me take you with the next slide. And what is that? What are these? These are gestures. Using engaging gestures like pressing your fingertips together to form a steeple can be helpful in showing the interviewer that you are engaged in the conversation and interested in what's being said. Hand gestures should be used to enhance what is being said, but don't overuse them. Of course, when I am telling you about the gestures, yes, of course, what am I doing? Like, I was been telling you, I was been telling the class, I was been telling so many things. So these indirect or direct gestures will make the conversation more better, because this conversation levels and these gestures will make sure the conversation more better and will also make sure that the person whoever is listening to you is noted that you are a very good conversational talker. Because when you don't have these gestures and when you are just sitting mum, the people who are listening to you won't understand what you really want to communicate with them. Yes, of course, the gestures are important while the conversation is happening, because without the gestures, the conversation will not happen better way, right? And the same way, don't use lot of gestures, because when you use lot of gestures, what happens, the concentration of the person will happen to go into the gestures but not onto you. So better use your gestures whenever they are necessary, because these gestures will help you in having a good conversation. All right. So this is the most important thing that you have to remember, especially when a conversation is happening, because this will obviously guide you in having a good conversation. So now I'll just give you a basic example, especially, you know, when you are going for an interview, especially when you have gone for an interview. The first thing, you know, I'll tell you, I just want you to see the slide here. Yes, when you are going for an interview, before I go ahead and say the last one, when you go for an interview, the first impression that you get is through a firm handshake, because when you don't have a proper handshake, the person will feel that you are not confident enough to have an interview. So this is the first thing that you have to remember when you go for an interview, that is a firm handshake. And the second one I was talking about was eye contact. If you don't have a proper eye contact, obviously the person who is talking to you will not feel that you are confident enough and you are well prepared. So always make sure that even after when you are giving a handshake or when you are giving a handshake, make sure you have a proper eye contact with the person whom you are giving a firm handshake or whoever you are talking to. All right. And now let us go ahead with the third one, that is, yes, a floody smile. So these three are the most important things that you have to remember when the conversation is happening, because when the conversation is happening, these three things will protect you to have a good conversation. And now let me take you with the fourth one. This is when the conversation is happening. So when the conversation is happening, the most important thing that you have to remember is your voice, because the voice will help you in guiding the person, or your voice will help the person you are listening to understand what you exactly want to communicate. Because if your voice is low, the person won't be able to understand, because if your voice is too high, the person might get disturbed. So make sure your voice is stable, your voice is fluctuated. Don't even be in a same rate of speech. Have some fluctuations in your voice and go up and come down. Because I'll tell you, when you're especially having the voice conversation, yes, of course, the most important thing that you have to remember in the voice is when you're having a conversation, yes, the people would look at your posture and your voice. When you speak about the voice, your voice should speak when the other people listen, right? So make sure your voice is little high sometimes, and sometimes it is low, and sometimes it is very cheesy, so that the people would love to listen to your voice and don't get disturbed because of voice. So voice plays a major role when the conversation have started. So remember that this voice will help you in understanding and making the conversation more better way. All right. So now let me take you with the next slide. That is, never fidget. This is when the conversations are happening, because when the conversations are happening, the most important thing that you have to remember is without a proper posture, if you do a lot of fidgets, what will happen? The person will obviously feel bad. And when you are doing a lot of fidgets, like, you know, when you are twirling your hair, when you are biting your nails, when you are clicking the pen, or when you are doing some extra unwanted things in the conversation, the conversation movement will obviously get disturbed because of your unwanted fidgets. When I say this unwanted fidgets, even shaking your legs and rotating your chair will also make sure that the conversation is getting disturbed. Because of the fidget, because of this unwanted fidgets, people will get to know that you are really not interested in the conversation, or you are scared of the conversation. So either both of them are too dangerous to have a good conversation. All right. So now let me take you with the next gesture. That is using engaging gestures. Because when I say using engaging gestures, gestures always make sure that the conversation makes better way. So when I speak about the engaging gestures will help you in obtaining the attention of the others, because when you have a proper gestures when you are talking, when you have these gestures, the shaking of the hands, the the fingertips together, pressing your fingertips together will make sure, oh, your very attention is listening to people, or putting this like this and having a conversation will make sure the listener is very interested in listening to you, or you are paying attention on that particular conversation. So this will obviously make sure your conversation is far better than the others. So always make sure these gestures are happening while the conversation is happening. These gestures are used while the conversation is happening. Always remember, this is the most important thing. The 3 points before, the 3 points while happening. And now, what is that you have to remember when the conversation is finished? That is what is the last point. If you can see here, 7th one, which I was talking, it's not a firm handshake, it is a gratitude. When I speak about the gratitude, the quality of being thankful, the post-interview or the post-conversation, thank you isn't dead, but the way you do it could make or break your chances of nailing the offer. So when I say this, I just want you to remember that if you can see the image, here, the image have a proper way of gratitudes, which intent can make you get an offer or an advantage of nailing it, right? So when I have said you about it, I just want to say you, at the end, the gratitudes will make a lot of difference, because when you don't have a proper gratitudes at the end of the session or at the end of the conversation, this always makes sure that you are really not interested to have an interview or to have a conversation. So when I say this, I want you to remember that a gratitude will always make sure that the person, whoever had the conversation with you, was so helpful in having the conversation. Because when you are having a conversation and without gratitudes, if you leave from there, the other listener or the audience will feel so bad that this person was never interested while he was having the interview. So always remember that this is the most important thing that you have to remember, especially when you have the conversation. So giving a proper gratitude can make the person, whoever is listening to you or whoever is having the conversation with you, with the gratitude, the conversation will go to the next level. And always remember, people, whenever you are in the interview, might you didn't have a proper conversation before, but the end, when you give a proper gratitude that, sir, thank you so much for having my interview, it feels my pleasure. That means the interviewer will feel so proud about him or her, and there will be a chance of you getting an offer. So always remember, at the last, a gratitude can change the entire view of the interview. So always remember that these are the most and the important things that you have to remember when especially you are having this kind of difficulties to have a conversation. So these notifically are gestures, fidgets, gratitudes, eye contact, voice, smile, and a firm handshake. These are the most important things that you have to follow, especially when you are having a conversation with somebody. It can be any situation. These are the 7 steps you to follow before conversation, at the conversation, after the conversation. So before conversation, we have 3 points to remember, that is firm handshake, an eye contact, and a floody smile. So while the conversation is happening, you again have to remember 3 things. Those are voice, gestures, and never fidget. Don't fidget. And the last one after the conversation that you have to remember is gratitude. When you don't have a proper gratitude, yes, you will have lot of difficulties, because when there is no proper gratitudes and you are leaving from the place, obviously people would feel bad that you didn't have a good time in the conversation. Remember guys, when you have that feeling or when you give that feeling to the audience that you didn't have a good time, the entire conversation is a waste of time. So whenever, even if you had a bad experience in the conversation, with a good gratitude, every person will intend to note that yes, this person is a real good person and this person have given us a good time in the conversation. That's what a person should maintain, especially with a small gratitude. Alright. So now let me ask you a few questions. If you can see, there are so many questions and answers that will raise from this situation. And what are this? When I say about the questions and answers on these, obviously when you are having a conversation, the first thing is give and take of the answers. When you are giving and taking the answers, always remember that when somebody is asking you a question, have a smile and then talk. Have a smile and then talk. Sometimes there will be questions which are unwanted. For example, are you married, or are you committed, or do you have a boyfriend, or do you have a girlfriend? All these are unwanted questions in a conversation, which doesn't make even a sense when you are having a conversation. So when you really don't want to answer that, have a gentle smile, because a smile can answer thousands and thousands of questions. Alright? And then they might have a doubt, you might have a doubt that what if interviewer, if I am a girl and if the interviewer is a male, can I give a handshake? This is always a question from girls. Yes, you can give a handshake until and unless it is allowed, because a handshake won't judge you, or a handshake will not make you a bad female. So a handshake can be given to the interviewer irrespective of the gender. And then the next doubts that you will have is, what kind of dress should I wear in the interview? Yes, any kind of dress would go until and unless it suit you, alright, because more than the dress, yes, your attire matters and your posture matters. So when I speak about the other doubts, the only thing that you have to remember is, are the doubts being clarified? After the gratitude, after you have given the gratitudes, right away if you get up and walk away, it won't look good, isn't it? So always have a question to the interviewer. And what kind of questions can you ask to the interviewer? You can always ask good type of questions, that is, sir, can I get your name? Or you can just ask, sir, how much salary can I expect? Or you can ask, madam, where would be my job location? Or you can also ask, sir, how was my interview? These are few questions which can help you to have a good conversation. Or when you are at the party, or when you are in a good meet, when an official conversation have happened, at the end, just say, people, that was an amazing conversation that have happened with us and I feel it as my pleasure. So do anybody felt that the conversation was bad? This makes the audience feel more comfortable in having the conversation with you. So guys, today we have learnt about the 7 easy steps to have a good communication, because yes, in communication, body language also matters a lot. So these are the 7 tips that you have to remember before the conversation, while the conversation, and after the conversation. So this will make a good conversation, and when you have a good conversation, you have anything in your pockets, alright? So thank you so much for listening to the class and being patient in listening to this conversational skills. I am Kranth, and thank you so much and have a good day.